Your warehouse has fork truck traffic blind spots. Collision awareness does not. Their motion sensing safety systems detect fork truck traffic and alert workers at intersections, overhead doors, and other high-risk zones. Proudly made in the U.S., their products help reduce the risk of accidents by giving your employees additional visibility or potential traffic just around the corner. Visit collisionawareness.com to build a safer warehouse. That's collisionawareness.com to make your warehouse safer.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. And on today's episode, I am going to be joined by Charles Ickes, and he is the CEO for North America at Bergen Logistics and also CloudX Systems WMS. And we're going to learn how those two tie in together today from Charles. But we're also going to hear a little bit about Bergen Logistics, his background and his story in the 3PL and distribution world, and also his view on the industry right now and kind of what he's seeing from his position as the CEO of Bergen. So, Charles, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
Great. Thanks for having me, Kevin.
Definitely happy to get you on here. You know, it's great to talk to you. We know each other a little bit outside of just a podcast here. So it's been good to get to know you a little bit, and I'm happy to dig into kind of your background a little bit today and what you're up to over at Bergen. So why don't we kick it off there? Tell us a little bit about your background in the industry, because I think, if I understand correctly, it's been a lot of fashion focus, right?
Yeah, very, very much fashion focused. A little strange background. I mean, always in operations, but I was a professional dry cleaner for one of the world's leading couture cleaners in Manhattan.
Interesting.
So that's my fashion, where it started. And then I got recruited by Rent the Runway, which is a VC started backup, and was part of the founding team over there, and spent 7 years renting dresses. Claim to fame over there was we built the largest dry cleaner in the world. We could process 6,000 dresses an hour.
Wow. So
that we could turn them all around for prom the next weekend, so to speak. It was more than prom, of course, but that was probably our busiest time of the year. So, and then was recruited by Bergen Logistics to come over here and run their 3PL, which is highly fashion oriented. We do a lot of fashion and lifestyle, but probably 90% fashion apparel in the luxury to couture, or luxury to high-end marketplace. So
interesting. So one of the premier dry cleaners here on the show, I see, and you're quite the style maven yourself too, I see, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, my staff pretty much makes fun of the way I dress, so probably don't quite cut it there.
Interesting background there, and I'm curious. I mean, how did you get into that dry cleaning initially? Like, how did you find that?
I'd like to say a huge mistake, but it's worked out very well for me.
Yeah,
I had just had an opportunity to go to Manhattan, and I didn't want to pass it up, and was looking for a job, and they were looking for an operations guy, and I'd done operations in resorts and food and beverage and in tool and die and plastic injection mold building. I was in the Navy, so just really all over the place. And I don't know why this guy, his name is John Medesi, and he's actually on the Housewives of New York City. He's quite the interesting character. Oh yeah, he was something, man. I worked with him for 6 years, and it was definitely an experience, as you can imagine, from the Housewives of New York City.
Yes, absolutely, definitely. So very interesting kind of background there, and now you're CEO at Bergen Logistics, but also CloudX Systems, WMS, which we'll talk about their relationship here in a little bit. But I guess tell us a little bit about Bergen Logistics and kind of what you got going on there. I mean, you're a 3PL essentially, right? And tell us a little bit about what does the network look like? What's your operations look like? What are you focused on?
Yeah, so Bergen Logistics was recently acquired in the last 3 years by a Landers Group, so it's gone global. But before I jump into that, I'll start with Bergen Logistics. Previously, we had 5 locations in the US and 1 in Canada, about 2.5 million square feet, focused heavily on fashion and lifestyle, but again, heavy fashion. So we're very well known in the fashion industry. Then the acquisition, which pushed us more globally. We'd already started a facility in Netherlands, which was was a tad challenge, we'll say, just because our resources were very light. We had 20 people, weren't very familiar with the EU. So this global acquisition was very helpful for us. We actually slid it over to one of the subsidiaries over there to work out of the EU on that. As that was evolving, I got a call from one of our brands. They were fulfilling in the UK. They said, "Hey, we've got a store. We're filling out of the basement, and we've become overrun with volume. What can you do to help us?" And we're like, "Well, I mean, we've got some resources in the UK." This was a different division. It was CAMAC, which is another subsidiary. Okay. And they're like, "How fast can you do this?" I'm like, "I don't know. We've never tried it." So we did it in about 4 weeks. We had them set up and running. Nice. Out of one of our existing buildings. The partnership worked really well. And we're like, we might have an opportunity here. And basically that brand was like, "Look, we don't have no time to do an integration. We have no time to figure out new processes. You've got to work on your platform," which was the CloudX Systems WMS. Okay. So we installed it with the partner in CAMAC in their building. They ran with it, and it went very well for the brand. And again, after we're now, call it 2.5 years into the Bergen Logistics network, we now have 19 facilities that run that WMS. We use the same contracts, the same integrations, the same pricing, the same processes, the same marketing. So we've essentially taken, our major subsidiaries in the Asia Pacific, Europe, UK, and leveraged them to start rolling it out across the globe. So, we've got 2 in Netherlands, 1 in Germany, 1 in Sweden. We're up to 3 now in the UK. We've got 4 in the or 5 in the US, 1 in Canada, and then 4 in Asia Pacific, plus a couple in Mexico and Brazil. So yeah, we've definitely scattered across the globe. Now, Landers itself has 125 facilities around the world. So we're sort of just scratching the surface so far.
Yeah. Interesting. So those 19, they are all operated as Bergen?
We'll be back after a quick break.
Struggling with scanning errors and peeling labels? Moving or reconfiguring your warehouse? Implementing a new WMS? The wrong labels can slow your operation down. Luckily, ID Label has durable, scannable barcode labels and signs built to last and keep your operation moving. Plus, if you need to get those labels installed, they've got it covered. Their expert team installs rack labels, overhead signs, floor striping, and more with precision, so your warehouse operations continue uninterrupted. I've installed tens of thousands of labels in my career, and I wish I had someone else do it for me. Get a free sample pack at idlabelinc.com, because when they do the barcodes, you can do more. That's idlabelinc.com for a free sample pack and more information.
Yeah, so they're all under the Bergen umbrella. We call it internally the Bergen Logistics Network. Okay. The subsidiaries that we work with, because they're all Landers related, all work under our umbrella using all of our systems so that it's a kind of a uniform experience. The biggest part is you're running on CloudX. You were in the US and you're like, I need to be in China and I want to do consolidation in China. And then I want to ship exactly what I want to ship to the EU and exactly what I want to ship to the US. Then we consolidate there. We can actually, if you get your allocations early enough, we can actually prep those allocations over there with much cheaper labor, prep those boxes and do more of a cross dock for your wholesale kind of thing in the US. And then of course in the UK or EU or wherever you need it. It's much cheaper. Again, single backbone. So it's like by the time you sign your contract and get your inventory to us, we've been set up and ready to run for weeks, if not months. So it's super fast. The other thing that we're doing with the CloudX WMS is we actually sell it. So we've got brands that are currently using CloudX that will reach out to us and like, hey, I've got to be in the UK. You know, this tariff, I'm sure we'll talk about because it's the biggest pain point everybody has right now. But, you know, we need to be in the UK. So we're getting a lot of demand in China to do consolidation and like ship to other places. So some of these other people who use CloudX as a standalone, they're not using us as a 3PL, just as the software, call us and say, hey, we need access to the UK, let's just say. Okay. And we're like, all right, well, you're using CloudX, so it's not really an issue because it's a multi-tenant platform. We can set you up right away for the UK. Let's get a contract in place. What are your volumes looking like? And then they're ready to go, and we're just waiting for inventory. So lots of opportunities there.
Very interesting. And so CloudX itself is something that is you also offer to other companies to utilize too?
Yeah. So there's one in Canada. They're using us in the United States. They do their own facility in Canada under CloudX. And then they use us for 3PL under CloudX in the US.
Okay.
We've got one that uses us in Asia and then uses CloudX in the US, UK, and EU. So yeah, lots of opportunities out there. And it does, it gives you an opportunity to strategically change the way you function as just say you're a retailer, right? And you're like, well, I think I should do this myself. Okay. So under CloudX, you can do it yourself. Let's just find out. You said, well, this is a lot harder than I thought. I'm not saving the money I thought I was going to save. I want to ship back to a 3PL. You don't lose your WMS. You don't lose your integrations. You don't lose your data. You don't really lose your reporting. So all your functionality stays the same, and yet you can pivot from strategy to strategy without having the pain of hauling out all your WMS, all your systems, all your data, all your integrations. Super messy, super complicated. Whereas this is like switch back and forth as much as you want. You know, if you've got some product like you're using us in the US and the UK, and you're like, well, you know, I've got this special product that I want to do, and I need a really high touch, and it's not cost effective. Split off just that portion in the UK and do that under CloudX, and the rest of the stuff that's more standardized can be done under the 3PL and the other areas. So very flexible tool.
Interesting. So I guess tell us a little bit about the decision for Bergen to, I guess, develop this CloudX WMS themselves versus, you know, going out and getting a WMS that's already in the market.
So the founders had gone out probably 15 years ago and were like, we need technology. E-com is becoming a thing. We've got to get some technology to support it. They went to a third party called Rex 11. It was a Moldova company. Moldova is next to Ukraine. It is a country, but that company went out of business. So they ended up buying the company. Okay. So for, what was it, close to 8 years, they had their own WMS systems. They don't run the company, but they kind of hadn't really supported it well. So we were down to probably a half a dozen. There's like 3 developers and a product person and a couple help desk people, and it was pretty light. And that was one of the parts of like, hey, this is painful. We're not getting good development. We're having to roll back. This is super, super problematic for both the customers and for us to operate a good business. So we went to a build versus buy, and we're like, let's look at really good software, and let's talk to the customers and see what their appetite is for this type of shift. And after doing a fair amount of due diligence, we found there was just a huge competitive advantage of having your own technology where you could pivot very quickly. You could build exactly what you needed. You could do it quickly. You go to a third-party WMS and you ask for software, and they're like, "Will you pay for it?" And you got to get on the roadmap, and it takes a while. So there's definitely some challenges for us where we're like, man, we can be way more agile with our own software. So, after making that determination, we just tripled down on it. We're up to 52 people in the CloudX division, 26 developers in Moldova with help desk scattered across the globe. We've got help desk in California, New York, Singapore, and in the UK and Moldova, excuse me. So we give 24/7 support. So again, the global transition was huge for us because we had resources all over the globe for this. So we've really pushed. We're re-architecting the whole platform into microservices, the multi-tenant. And frankly, Landers wants to roll this out to the other divisions beyond fashion and lifestyle. So I said we were up to 19. I think the goal is anywhere where it makes sense, let's use this because it's a less expensive platform for them to purchase. It's more agile. We have a lot of focus on it. And, it makes us more competitively positioned in the market because most of the 3PLs out there in the world are the big ones that are global like we are going to be fractured. You look at a Geodis or a Kuehne+Nagel, they're running, they get two buildings across the street from each other and they may be running on different systems.
Interesting.
So I think there's a really great opportunity here to be single platform right across the globe with single integration points and being very agile.
Interesting. Yeah. That is interesting because it kind of streamlines the operation a little bit, and it gives you, I think, a little more flexibility, right? If you needed to shift something from one location to another, same system, so not that big of a lift, I imagine, as if you had to, like you said, go across the street and go to a different system, right? It's very difficult to try and do that. So I'm curious, from a technology perspective, outside of the WMS, I mean, have you invested in any type of automation or robotics? And I'm curious because you mentioned you're focused on fashion and some luxury items too, which are obviously very expensive goods, I imagine at some point. So how does that thinking kind of come into when you think about some of these more advanced technologies that are coming in the market and being a little more prevalent?
My favorite topic, automation. We have a love-hate relationship.
Okay.
We test a lot of automation.
Yeah.
So we've had goods people, something called Kaha. We've had auto stores. We've got Locus. We've got auto packing machines. We've got, of course, the traditional conveyor. We've got Bombay sorters. Honestly, for a 3PL, I mean, our typical contracts are 1 to 3 years.
Right.
It's very hard to buy automation that's going to solve a very specific problem for a very specific customer and think you're going to get an ROI on it. So you've got to find something that's pretty flexible that you can move from customer to customer to customer. Auto stores don't do well with extremely long tail, lots of SKUs. It doesn't work well. Locus is, leveraging transportation. You've got 100,000 foot footprint and you're doing a lot of moving around to get your picks in, and you're doing it 24/7, multiple days a week, 7 days a week. Beautiful solution. Beautiful. If you're running 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, those are RASs, robot as a service. So you're paying, whatever, $1,100 a month for a robot. You want to maximize it. But, just because I'm saying that robot, anything automation it's really about how much can you run it? If I can use it for every customer, running every product through it, could make a lot of sense. Most of my customers and automation are not going to be, not all my customers are going to fit on every automation piece. So
Yeah.
we thought the auto packing machine, it builds a box around the order, would be
Right.
brilliant. And it did okay. At the end of the day, the challenge was maintenance. So by our third year, the maintenance was just destroying us. And our buildings run from 7 a.m. to 7:30 p.m.
Okay.
Monday through Friday, and then one shift on Sunday, excuse me. We didn't have enough volume to make that work. We're not an Amazon running 24/7, 365, right? Now, what we did find though, so I'm going to move away from automation in its most technical sense and move towards technology.
Sure.
What we did find is very smart pick paths, very smart pick cart technology, very smart batching and waving to pick to or put to lights. That type of tech was astonishing to us. You do a discrete pick, you might get 40 units an hour. You start doing smart carts, and you might get up to 80 units per hour. You start doing smart smart batches or waves for a wall, you're at 160, right? So those numbers start to move the needle quite a bit. If I was just a traditional retailer and I had a product that I've been pushing out for the last 20 years, it really hasn't changed that much, and I ran, 7 days a week, 18 hours a day, I would definitely be in automation. The flexibility required with what we do, though, it just seems like the tech gives us the flexibility and the automation currently doesn't. I think after the prices come down a little bit more, I think we'll see this is the place to be in 10 plus years. Yeah. You've got to be. I'm looking for the humanoid robots, man. Those would look pretty exciting.
Yeah. Are you a fan? Yeah.
You look at it. How can you not be, right? It looks pretty exciting. They're so damn slow, though.
Yeah.
They're like wobbling around, and I was listening to the guys on the, kind of at one of the conferences, and they're like, oh yeah, these guys will never get an ROI on it, but they understand it. They're doing test bedding, and I'm like, okay, good to know, guys. I'm glad you didn't tell me that to my face, but that's where the future is for sure, right? So
yeah, it's interesting. Interesting time, definitely in the space to see some of the technology that's out there. But I think that's such a great point you said there. With from a 3PL perspective, and I do think that there's a bit of a misperception out there in the market because of the marketing and everything that some of these robotics and automation companies come that like you drive down the street and you're driving past a bunch of warehouses and there must be robots in all of them, and it's very, very few in the grand scheme of things, right? And I think that's probably one of the challenges there is like being able to have that flexibility, which is interesting. And I think the humanoids potentially will allow more flexibility like that, right? That's kind of the problem statement, I guess, in a sense, to make them human-like. I don't know, a little scary sometimes, I think, but very, very interesting perspective there on that.
I will say one thing. So when we were running the Kaha robots, with the autonomous robots in one of the buildings here in New Jersey, people loved it. They thought it was the best marketing program I ever had, but it still didn't get an ROI, even if I put in the marketing budget.
Oh, interesting. Meaning, like, so you had clients that would see it and they're like, oh yeah, this is innovative. Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
We had shut that project down, but we had customers like, what, where are the robots? Where are the robots? And it's like, maybe we'll restart it in a high value cage where it makes more sense than actually in the regular production areas. So
Interesting. So now we have to talk about, because I mean, you're dealing with like fashion, like you said, and I think probably some of the brands that you work with are probably seeing some impact from this tariff situation, right? So tell us a little bit about kind of what are you seeing, what are you hearing from brands? I mean, especially on the apparel and clothing side, because a lot of that is manufactured overseas.
I think chaos would be a great word for it.
Okay.
We, we were taking calls individually from customers. We have about 300 different brands that we support, and we were taking individual calls. So I was taking a lot of calls. I'm like, this is not sustainable, guys. So I grabbed my marketing guy and I'm like, look, we gotta run some kind of webinar or something. So we put together a quick deck. This was like a Thursday afternoon. By Friday, the deck was done. We started announcing on Friday that we're going to start doing this on Monday. We did it all week. I've never had such a high level response on this. I mean, we got 160 of our brands showed up over the 5 days to talk to us about tariffs and what we can do. And we talked about, cash flow strategies, mitigation strategies, what you can and can't do. So probably the big conversation here was class 3 bonded versus FTZ. And the lead talking point on that is a class 3 bonded, the percentage of the duties or the tariff isn't set until you remove it from a class 3 bonded. So if you bring it in the States, we had people that had it on the water and they're like, oh my God, I can't pay 145%. Or they tried to fly it out early and missed the cutoff for the midnight flight. And they're like, dude, I'll go out of business if I have to pay this tariff. So we're like, put it in the class 3 bonded, which we happen to have this space, and you'll just need to let it sit there until you're comfortable with where the tariff has gotten reset to, and then you pull it out at that point. And then for an FTZ, which is a bonded space as well, when you put it into bond, you set that percent duties. So what we said is like, look, if you don't want to pay the duties and you want to help your cash flow, and let's just say you're coming in from China at 145%, something changes, they drop it to 40, get it out if you're comfortable with the 40 and drop it into FTZ, and you don't even have to pay the 40 on the FTZ until you remove it from the FTZ. So
just kind of lock it in.
So you've locked in your 40, so it can't shift if you're not ready to pay that amount up front. A lot of these guys do clear into the United States, though, and we're comfortable with some of these. Even now, it's a high tariff depending on what they're bringing in, right? But or previously, excuse me. But the 145% is absolutely out of control for these guys. They're like, we're going out of business. So we gave them that strategy. We had some folks that were like, well, I'm just going to move it through a different country. It's like, so that's country of export versus country of origin. And that would be, you can't mix those two because that would be fraud. You would be in trouble. That's criminal. And they didn't understand that because evidently some of their manufacturers were pushing them to like, oh yeah, we'll just send it over to X country, and then we'll say that's the country of origin. I'm like, that's not legal. Just be aware, and that's all you need to know. So big conversations around that, how that could help. We also talked to them about how our global network can help. Most of our facilities within the network that are outside of the U.S. or FTZs. We can do consolidation all over Asia. So we've got India, Singapore, China, and Thailand. So if you got products sitting somewhere and you're like don't know what to do with it, drop it into the FTZ until you can figure out. We've got some folks that are like, look, we were bringing it in the U.S., clearing it, paying double duties, and then doing a cross-border solution into Europe. We don't want to do that anymore. Can you help us to consolidate and divide it up? And we say, well, we can either consolidate within the U.S. in a class 3, or we can do it overseas somewhere more locally, and then, consolidate the containers so you can optimize your shipping parameters and get it over to whatever country you need it in, and trying to avoid paying double duties or duties in the wrong place at the wrong time. And of course, if you're bonded, then you can export it back out without importing the U.S. So you'll never pay duties. So it just gives you a lot of flexibility. So it's interesting because we've educated a lot of people now. So I'm really wondering if the whole bond is going to become more prevalent, because especially in apparel, because most of these guys have challenges with cash flow no matter what. So if they can delay paying the duties until they're actually pulling it out, we suspect that, FTZs are going to become popular over the next 12 to 18 months, just from an increase in their cash flow potential there by using an FTZ.
Interesting. Yeah, it's very interesting. And so I guess to clarify the distinction there, because I have been seeing much more chatter, certainly like on LinkedIn and other places too, like who has bonded space, right? Who has FTZ, right? But I guess to clarify there, if you bring it in and put it into FTZ, free trade zone, right, then that locks in the tariff percentage at that time, right? So no matter what time no matter at what point you take out that product from there, you're still going to get hit with that time frame of percentage. But if you're going to this class 3 bonded that you mentioned, then you will not get that tariff percentage. So if it goes down lower, then you bring it out and you will do whatever is at that moment. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
Okay.
The one issue with the class 3 is you can't do a lot of manipulation. So if you're doing e-com, pretty challenging. If you're sending cases to people, very simple. But you definitely don't want to open cases and try and manipulate and barcode or do any type of work on product in there. You really want to bring it in pallet cases and ship it out of there, pallet and cases. So as soon as you get into omni-channel, you really need something like the FTZ. But if you need to defer your tariff right now, get it in the class 3. You can even if you bring in, like, say you got 100 cases of something and you need one case every 3 weeks or something, at least you're mitigating that over a longer period of time about when you're going to pay it. And, potentially it'll go down. Hard to say, of course, with our current administration, but, at least your options are open a little bit.
Interesting. Yeah. Very, very insightful there. And I'm curious too, because, one of especially like from like an apparel perspective, right? I mean, there's some challenges trying to manufacture apparel in the U.S., right? It's certainly not as robust as maybe it once was way back when. So do you see any of your clients or are they talking at all about trying to move production to the U.S.?
Not really. They're talking still about overseas and where the more viable, there's conversations about Turkey, and then of course Vietnam was a big spot, but now that doesn't look great. And then, so there's just not enough production onshore. We do have some very small brands that do work out of Manhattan and do work onshore, but definitely few and far between. So not a lot of capacity in the U.S. for this right now.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think some of the brands. I mean, maybe on the like ultra premium, high end luxury side, maybe they have some luxury and margin to do that, but some of the ones that are at a lower price point, certainly I think is much more challenging to do that. So very interesting to talk to you here today, Charles, and really appreciate you coming on the podcast here and sharing some insights from your experiences and what you're seeing currently in the industry as well, and from your operations there at Bergen. So if people want to connect with you or learn more from you, what's the best way to do that?
BergenLogistics.com.
All right, awesome. We will put that at thenewwarehouse.com and also in the show notes here so people can easily find it. So, Charles, thank you once again for your time on the show today.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Enjoyed this episode? Make sure you are subscribed to the podcast, and for more content from the New Warehouse, find us on LinkedIn and YouTube. Links to subscribe can be found in the show notes, and for everything The New Warehouse, head to thenewwarehouse.com.